Oh my goodness, warriors, do I have an episode for you today? I am recording this intro after my conversation with the guest that I have on the show today, and you'll understand how I'm feeling after you listen to it. It is an interview like no other. It's almost like I'm inviting you into my own personal energy cleansing. I actually am. So, so listen in. Today on the show, I have Sherianna Boyle. She is just an amazing resource, and she is the founder of Emotional Detox Coaching. She's written 10 books. She's the creator of the Cleanse Method. She's an adjunct psychology professor, yoga instructor. She just does a lot of things. And today on the show, you get a sort of window in, we sort of start talking like a regular interview, and then she dives deep and does a bit of a cleanse with me. So I am feeling wonderful about sharing this with you. I was going to say vulnerable, but I'm not. I think it will tremendously help everyone and everyone. So listen in, and thank you so much, Sherianna, for coming on the show and sharing just your amazing warmth and ability to feel my energy from literally the other side of the world. So cool. Listen in, warriors. Hello and welcome to the Love Your Life show, Sherianna. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yes, I am so glad. You are someone who I have read many of your books. You have such a robust body of work, first of all. How many books have you written? 10?
10. Yeah.
10. Yeah. I mean, like, come on. So I love it. And you've helped me a lot in my own recognizing emotional intelligence and how to process emotions. And I am just so glad to have you on the show today to help listeners. And I'm wondering if you could start at a sort of more 101 level for us and give us a brief overview of what sort of emotions are and emotional detoxes.
Yeah, sure. So emotions, I mean, many people describe them in many ways, but they describe them as energy and motion. You hear that a lot. Emotion, Latin for energy and motion.
Mm-hmm.
And emotions also are defined as neuropeptides on a biochemical level. So as a neuropeptide, they influence many things. So I always kind of like to think of it like a neurotransmitter in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So neuropeptides influence our levels of circulation. They influence cellular turnover and inflammation in the body. So emotions, I always say, they have like a non-physical component, and then they have the physical component. So they kind of cross lines like that, which makes them a lot of fun to work with because they kind of expand into areas that, they expand our consciousness and things like that. So, but they have an effect on the body. They have an effect on our thoughts, our mind. And in terms of emotional detox, I think that's what most people get to know me through my work when I developed Emotional Detox. And there's that book series that nobody really kind of defined that. So that's what I did in that book series, and didn't realize how much it would help people, because I think everybody kind of needed a little bit of a definition and a foundation for that, because immediately when you think emotional detox, you think food. You think get rid of the bad stuff and put in the good stuff kind of thing. And so with emotions, where it's different with emotional detox, we're actually not getting rid of emotions. Mm. So that's something I want to be clear. What you're removing are reactions, and it's our reactions which actually cause our emotions to suppress or repress in the body. And as I just said, when you repress emotions, then you're going to influence the circulation of them and the flow of them, which is going to have an impact on the biology of your body, on the energy, which is going to can potentially create some imbalances in your mind and your body and your spirit. And that's why some people kind of might get a little depressed, or they might get anxious, or they might find themselves sort of in these cycles of behavior. So with an emotional detox, again, we're not getting rid of them, we're getting to them. And my motto is always, if all emotions are good, meaning they all have value, even the fear, the guilt, the shame, when you give yourself permission to process them. And then, of course, the next natural question is, well, how do I do that? And that's where cleanse, the acronym cleanse, comes in, which I created. And it's basically stands for 7 steps, mindful steps, using mindful tools to be able to process your emotions. So once again, when you use those steps, what you're doing is you're releasing reactions and you're allowing yourself to get to your emotions. And so that's what's been written. Cleanse is sort of my featured standard signature process. And then I've written about them in the last 4 books. And then Energy in Action is the most recent version of I don't know do you have this book?
No, I was not able to get it when I was in America. I like have had such book drama, you wouldn't even believe it. It's okay.
Oh, darn, that's right. And you were just in the States. Yeah. So I got to really work on that for you. But anyway, and this one incorporates Energy in Action, also has the cleanse, and takes it sort of really uses energy healing tools. I have something I talk about in this book. I talk about the spiritual laws of the universe, and I create cleanses that correspond with them, because those, in my opinion, the spiritual laws in the universe, I know we all like to refer to them as forms of manifesting, which they are, but they teach us a ton about emotions. And that's what I talk about in that book.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for that. I always define emotions as energy in motion, but I have never linked it to the neuropeptide, and which is super helpful, because so much of what we do, I find, in our society is like discount the emotions. We're like, no time for that. Let's, move forward here. And when I initially started my business, I was all into wellness, and I was all into, like, I looked very healthy on the outside, yet was not doing any sort of emotional cleansing or detoxing. So I ended up having 32 seizures in a weekend. And, like, I was presenting physically very sick and negative, whereas, like, externally, like, all my markers were fine. And I started my business called Strength, Mind, and Body, because I was like, oh, actually they're connected. So I love how your definition, and just it brings to the sort of science to emotions, whereas a lot of us in our whole society is like, those are almost like the frou-frou things, like, don't stop to feel, because we got to keep going, that sort of mentality. I really appreciate.
Wow, I didn't know about your story. That's incredible. 32 in a weekend. That's wow.
And nothing was wrong, except, like, when I was in the ER, they kept, like, taking all this tests and all the stats, and they're like, what is going on? And a doctor was visiting from Johns Hopkins University in the hospital, and he just sort of overheard them talking about my case, and he said, go ask her, like, if she's going through anything stressful in life, and if something's going on. And he had just done the study showing how seizures can come from battle, like people in battle, and high conflict divorce cases, which I was like, that's me. But it was just so interesting and satisfying to have, it's sort of like, oh, you're having these random seizures, what's going on? Oh, it might be because you're shoving those emotions down.
I mean, it has an impact on our glands and our organs, and the stress. I mean, some stress is good and necessary, but when it gets to the levels where we're pumping out cortisol and things, and our adrenals are getting tapped out, then that's a whole nother thing. And you're right. I mean, sometimes we get so used, divorce is tough, because it takes so long.
Yeah.
For a lot of people,
Yes.
And if you think about being under those high levels of stress for that amount of length of time, for some people it's years, that now we're talking chronic levels of high levels of stress and being in that space of the unknown. So it would make sense to me that your body would start to start to give out and just say, I can't do this anymore,
For sure.
especially when it's nasty,
Yeah,
right?
well, and if you think like usually getting divorced, you probably were stressed before you move into the divorce.
Yeah,
So it is
usually.
a very elongated period of unease in your body. And I guess like I grew up in a house where feeling emotions was well, were not feeling emotions was actually pretty much, if not praise, like go you for not having emotion, like that wasn't said to me, but it was very much like if I was sad or if I was upset or like, let's fix that. You know, I remember my dad saying so many times, turn that frown upside down, Susie. And like just, and I know I'm not alone in that. And so how do you help people, or how could you help the listener who's having a hard time like thinking that like, oh, okay, so I need to feel my feelings, or that they're, you know, they hear you say like there's no bad feeling. It's I guess one of the fears that I have come up often from people is they're like, but if I feel it, I'm going to be stuck in it forever. Like I'm, you know,
Yeah.
and that, like, how do we get past that to practice some of your
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love your example about your dad and growing up like that, because I think what it speaks to is it's this survival mode thing. And a lot of us are trained and taught that to survive, you need to push those things aside. You need to push what you're feeling and keep going, like you said in the beginning. So it's really about, okay, recognizing that first, right? That I have this survival mechanism, this coping mechanism that I've somehow conditioned or learned, or I believe that if I feel, then, you know, some people, and everybody's different, Susie, but like in someone in your case, they literally do feel, and I know it's irrational, like they're going to die,
yeah,
right? Like if I stop to feel, I'm going down.
mm-hmm.
And so it would make perfect sense that that would be not even an option on the table, and that they would associate it with somehow the weakest form, right? That's somehow doing that. And so, I mean, you start where you start, and that's partially how the energy in action one, I hate bringing up a book you're still trying to get, but that this one is kind of for those peeps, because it really it brings in light, right? So what we do is infuse the cleanse practices with this high vibrational light, because you do have to recalibrate your nervous system again. And so like for somebody who is in that fight or flight, and then they revisit it later, because again, divorce is like another set of survival. How am I going to survive? I mean, think of all the things you have to think about. How am I going to survive? How am I going to live? All of that. How bad's it going to get? You know, there's so many unknowns, but then taking these practices and again, realigning with those spiritual laws of the universe, because you just get so off kilter. The laws don't talk about surviving. Right? They're all about expansion. They're all about connection. They're all about bringing you to who you truly are, your oneness. They're not about being powerless. So if there's anything to lean into, it's the teachings of those laws, realign. And then what I've done is, so every chapter is on a law, and then I put specific emotional cleanses to help you line up with that. So as you're talking, I'm just kind of trying to use my little cheat sheet here and see, I mean, yours is almost reminds me of the law of perpetual transmuted energy, or anybody in your situation. So the law of perpetual transmuted energy reminds us that we can, you know, we may not be able to control our circumstances, but we can change energy. We have the power to do that. And so the law is saying, you know, if you think like you're powerless, or you're kind of stuck in your situation, I would work with that law, the cleanses. I'm trying to see what cleanses are in that section, with the law of perpetual transmuted energy. So for example, what do I have here? Okay, there's one for grounding, there's one for well-being. There's one for, yeah, so it's an affiliate, it's associated with the red ray of light. So
Mm.
the red ray of light, and again, these are come from source, oneness, like they're pure. Each of these systems, so the spiritual laws of the universe and the rays of light, are thousands and thousands of years old. So they're written in the Hindu texts and the Vedas, high spiritual practices. And what I've done is bring them together. The red ray of light is all about grounding, but it's not just grounding. We hear a lot about a grounding to earth. What that red ray wants you to do is ground in love.
Mm.
And so I would be, because if somebody's in that, they've got to really work with those cleanses, ground in the vibration of love, pure, unconditional love.
Mm.
And that's how you want to start to realign and with that law again. It's like you kind of lose your sense of who you really are. When you go out of alignment, you start to we become limited in our perspective. So I probably would work with that.
Yeah. Well, I just love that because, as you're talking and you're sharing, it's definitely my experience that I was taught to not feel emotions from a more protective place, like that sort of like deep need as my human being to belong to the family group was brought into, like if I was to go against what my dad or my mom wanted, well then, oh my goodness, like what then? So that feeling of like I'm going to die is not
So
healthy.
that feeling of it being conditional.
Yeah. Oh, completely.
Did you
Yeah.
hear that?
Yeah.
That's why
Completely
that red
conditional.
ray is so
Yeah.
important,
Right.
because we don't realize, and our parents, parents, we forgive you.
Right.
I'm a
Yeah.
parent, I forgive myself. We
Exactly.
all do these
Give
things,
myself all the
and
time.
we don't realize we're giving messages of conditional, right?
Mhm.
I love you when you're like that, and so that's why I would, for folks like in your situation, that red ray of light, grounding in unconditional love.
So because you keep mentioning love, and another definition I have for love is acceptance. And one of the things that's felt healing for me in some of your other books, where you don't talk about feelings as good or bad, but it's this, like, I feel great ease when I accept whatever emotion I'm feeling, like just this sort of like overall, like, oh, okay, anxiety's here right now, or oh, wow, this is shame right now, or oh, like this sort of softening. And does that come up at all in that law, or?
So these are frequencies. The laws are like they're kind of like an alive consciousness frequency. They're like an intelligence, right? So in terms of the red ray, yeah, I think that's all of those emotions matter, and to acknowledge them. But with that red ray and the law of perpetual transmuted energy says is you don't have to sit in it.
Mm.
You don't have to just say, okay, I feel shame. Okay, I feel guilty. I mean, to me, the law of perpetual transmuted energy would say, okay, that's like, okay, well, the law's still here. You don't have to just be with that energy. Frequency can change it.
Okay, so what do you do?
Well, you do the cleanses with the law.
Okay.
So in
The ones that
terms
you
of,
recommend for that particular.
I would, so give me another example of what you mean by that. What question do you have?
Well, I guess I'm just thinking of the listener who is trying, is coming from this place of like emotions are good or bad. And so we're trying to get them to a place of like emotions are emotions. They're energy in your body. They're sort of neuropeptides. Like they just are. And then how do we, like, what that next step? I guess maybe it would be helpful for you to explain what a cleanse is, just in general.
That's where I was kind of heading as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the main thing what I'm hearing you is yes, and this is where other people might read other people's books and they might be like, you're kind of twisting my brain, because there is a lot of people that say, okay, well, acknowledge the emotion.
Mhm.
And that feels good. There's no doubt sharing how something makes us feel can give us relief. I say, why stop there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
you get a little bit of relief, but there is going to have to be a place where you detach from those labels.
Mhm.
So shame, and then, so if you say shame or guilt or whatever it is, it's going to be difficult to move them if we're sticking with a label, right? It's kind of like, this is the way I'm thinking of it. It's kind of like when you were in high school and everybody described you as something
Yeah.
characteristically,
Yeah.
and you're all grown up now, and they're still describing you as that.
Mm. Yeah.
Right? It kind of holds you down a little bit.
Mhm.
And so it's the same thing with emotions. I wouldn't get overly attached. So here's what I had to do with emotional detox thinking, because I was in the same place.
Mhm.
There's only one emotion: love. You
Mm.
might have heard me say this before. This is in, I think, Emotional Detox for Anxiety is when I came up with that. There's only one emotion: love. Everything else is a reaction.
Mm.
So in terms of cleanse, when you say, okay, well, cleanse, well, what are you cleansing? You might be cleansing an emotion. Now, I know I said we don't get rid of emotions, but but we release them when they're reactions,
Mm.
right? When they're our way of controlling or managing our energy, yes, we cleanse them.
Mm.
So I might say, okay, if I'm feeling shame and that keeps coming up, shame, 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 then I'm going to slide that into a reactive category, and I'm going to move through the cleanse. And it's, and this is just one random step in the cleanse. And when I feel this energy, I'm not even going to call it shame. When I feel this energy, or when I associate this energy,
Mhm.
with this word, it makes me feel.
Okay.
And then you breathe, and then you breathe in and you breathe out, right? And then you breathe in, because it is a lot of like pairing, associating, right?
Mhm.
Because we're going to keep bringing up the past, because it's like, yeah, I feel shame, but that shame that we identify has got to come from a memory. And we
Mhm.
know that a lot of emotions are from memory, that they're stored as memory in the brain. They impact the hippocampus of the brain. So that's why I want eventually people to kind of loosen their grip on these labels and say to yourself, okay, if I'm really stuck on this, ask yourself, could this just be a reaction?
Mhm.
Could my labeling and needing to identify it, because it is a little bit of a control thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Eh,
I can see that completely with guilt for me. Like when I would feel guilt and I would like I might say, "Oh, I feel guilty," and I would maybe feel the energy in my body. I can like listening to you, I'm just like, "Oh yeah, like that is so a conditioning of my past." That is like why would I feel guilty if something, you know,
because it controls energy. You
yeah.
were told not to feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
You learned
Yeah.
conditions. There were conditions, whether they were direct or indirect, whether they were interpreted that way, intended to be that, you were conditioned not to feel. What a
Mhm.
great way not to feel.
Yeah.
Put guilt on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So in some ways, you're doing what you're told,
Right. Yeah. And which is why
right?
then it feels quote unquote better to my sort of nervous system moving forward, but I'm shoving it down and then we might have inflammation or diagnoses or panic attack, all that sort of stuff. So how would like sort of taking it back to that person who's like, okay, Sherianna, I'm ready to like feel my feelings. Like what does a cleanse look like? Or
Hmm.
um like
Yeah,
what would sort of a first step there be?
sure. So it's always starts at the C. There's different. So the structure is cleanse, which is the 7 steps. Within that structure, there's variability. And the reason I do that is because it's kind of like, well, you know all about exercise and all that. It's like doing the same exercise muscle groups.
Yeah.
After a
Right.
while, you've got to change it up, right? So you got to change it because we're trying to change the brain here. We're changing energy, we're changing patterns. So the structure of cleanse stays the same. Within that structure, like an emotional detox now, I offer 135 cleanses,
That
and
is
there's
so
different
good.
variations
Yeah.
for, the energy in action is different variations, but you will never have a different structure. The first step is called clear reactivity. Clear reactivity, basically it's I give dozens of strategies, but one strategy, Susie, we can try is this presses. So you do the 2 fingers on the back of the head like this, 2 fingers above the navel. So I'll show you my navel. I'm here. 1, 2, 3. They're about an inch apart. Right. Okay. That's the gut lining, right? You're pressing the indentation in the back of the head there. So feel the ridge, and then do those lower presses across. You don't have to go fast, just light touch, nothing crazy, right? And then 2 fingers on the crown, and then do those lower across. So we're clearing reactivity, right? We are focusing, and then the third eye. We're focusing so pretending Susie's sort of being the guinea pig of guilt, right? Someone feels a lot of guilt, shame. They kind of share, they're kind of from the same family.
Yeah.
Guilt and shame, they have a similar calibration, right? So then the right hand on the left shoulder, crossing them in line, right ear, right shoulder, eyes are down towards the floor and down for 3, 2, 1, head back to center. Breathe. And then left ear, left shoulder. I'm just doing it really quick. Eyes are down. And head back to center. Take a breath. Breathe in, breathe out, right? And then we'll add in a variation of tapping. So we're going to continue on in the steps, how I feel. So say this, Susie, how I feel in my body right now is.
How I feel in my body right now is.
And then breathe in. And breathe out. Okay, so I'm getting a little bit different now that you're breathing. So we're going to go with energy and action. We're going to go with the law of correspondence. Okay. I'm not saying this is your current life. Okay. But so the law of correspondence teaches us that what's happening outside of us is happening inside of us. Right. So if our life is, up and down, not really settled, if there's something inside is what the law of, right? So we're going to focus on the blue ray of light, Susie, blue ray of light. Okay. Everybody here, blue ray of light, focus on blue ray of light. Blue is all about like protection. When you're going through a long divorce like that, or have those health scares you talked about, there's not feeling protected, right? And so blue is about protection. This tells me that someone like Susie needs protection. They need to be looked out for, taken care of.
Okay, so I'm
not rejected, protected is what I'm hearing. Go ahead.
I'm feeling so tight in my chest. I think because like that feels so true to me. Because that's not even the half of what happened. Like my dad supported my ex's divorce lawyer. Like,
okay. Well, this makes total sense.
Yeah. So my feeling, like what I'm sort of in the stage of my life, that's years ago, but my stage of my life now is looking for that protection, like that. So that's so interesting.
Okay, well, I'm very, very sorry that happened to you. That was very dishonorable, and I'm very sorry to hear that happened to you, first of all.
Wow.
So, yeah. So as soon as I usually, once someone starts to breathe, I can pick up on what's blocked and what's going on. But so protection. Okay. So blue ray of Right.
Oh, I'm like,
And
wow, yes, Sherianna. Okay.
yeah, so that is, again, I'm very sorry because that is a very horrible thing, to go through, to have somebody do that. So anyway, blue ray of light is what everybody's focusing on now. Okay. Don't focus on what happened to her.
Mhm.
Focus on the blue ray of light. Okay. That does her no good. So, so anyway, so blue, so what we're going to do is we're going to hum. So the blue again is the part of the book. So it's going to work with the law of correspondence. We're going to hum next. And the hum, inhale, exhale. I really want you to connect with that blue ray of light when you hum. True power. Okay. True power is not by, for lack of a better word, I really want to say a different word, but I'll say a nice better, is not by screwing someone over. Okay. That's not true power. Right. So blue is all about true power, protection, and faith. Right. And so we're going to hum together. So we're going to inhale, connect with the blue ray of light. Inhale. Hum. And we do it 3 times. Okay, we inhale again, blue ray of light, law of correspondence. Inhale. So if we're not protected on the outside, there's something of feeling unprotected on the inside. Okay, so we're going to inhale again. And what are we humming, right? Reactions, right? And the reaction is feeling unprotected, right? That's what we're releasing. So feel the reservoir of the hum and let it kind of roll there, Susie, and anybody else who's been in those positions. Let it move down your spine, right? Do you have any neck stuff in your life? Neck issues? Because I'm feeling it in the neck.
Yeah, my neck is like between my traps is tight often. Yeah. I also feel things right
That's
here in
also,
the chest.
but that's also it's going to squeeze that nervous system, so it's like a pinched nerve in the neck's gonna, so, and it's also like, they use the phrases like when you have a pain in the neck in your life.
Yeah.
Right. That person's a pain in my neck. Literally, it's a pain in my neck. Right. And so that's, spine related. And that's behavior that's rather spineless, if you think about it, Susie,
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting.
So yeah, so I kind of just want to make that connection, and I'm not trying to be judgmental or hurtful, but I'm just making an energy connection. So really kind of, we're going to do one more hum. So just get the gist of this. So let's inhale, blue ray of light, everybody. And maybe inhale, law of correspondence. Is that like a thing in the family? People like, do you remember anybody in the family saying that's a pain in my neck? They're a pain in my neck. Is that anything that you remember?
Not necessarily, but my family was very judgmental.
Blamey kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this might be in the line, right? In terms of when you hum and when you focus on that blue light, just to ask it to expand. We want to ask that light to expand beyond Susie's situation into the family line, into the patterns of the family, anywhere where, there's blame, and there's feeling that unsupported kind of thing, right? So feel that. And then let's just take another moment, close your eyes, because it's kind of a deep one, and breathe. I want to switch to, okay, so we're going to switch gears into the law of compensation, Susie. That's with the green light.
Mhm.
And when your intentions are pure and your intention and your priorities are, which I can feel that they were with you, even your intention, it wasn't like you wanted to take your ex to the cleaners or something, right? Your intention was pure, doing the right thing, right? And so I want you to open up to the green ray of light now, which is all about compensation. And that's about being rewarded. That's about being replenished. That's about being taken care of. I want to open that up for you so you can really feel like you can reap the rewards of your integrity.
Mm.
That goes a long way, by the way, everyone, keeping your integrity throughout it all. I mean, we all have our moments, but for the most part, right? So now I want you to say out loud, say, I allow say, compensation, meaning energy. I want you to get all that energy back, Susie, all that energy that all that divorce took, living in that kind of family took. I want you to bring it all back in. And everybody listening, bring it all back in. I allow compensation. Call it back in.
I allow compensation.
Yeah, call it in. Just say, I'm calling my energy back. All the energy I lost, out everything over, every little thing, every little word. Everybody call it back in. You don't have to just sit and suffer. I allow compensation, meaning energy. Bring it back to you, your heart, your body, your soul, your spirit. I allow compensation. I allow healing.
You allow healing. Yeah.
I allow truth. And these are the statements within the laws and the rays that are written in the book. And then it's I am is the final part of our cleanse. So we're in the E, by the way, E's, which is the I am, which is I am fully compensated. I want you to say that.
I am fully compensated.
Yeah. I am awake. I am awake.
I am awake.
I am aware.
I'm aware.
I'm alert.
I'm alert.
I'm energized.
I'm energized.
I am protected.
I'm protected.
Right? Because when you're awake and aware, you are protected.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a question. So like when you say like I'm awake and I'm aware and I'm coming from like integrity, and I mean I feel that, and I am like, yes. But when I say I am fully compensated or I am protected, there's like it's like I'm sort of like holding back.
You're a little bit rocky there.
Yeah. So what would one like just do your cleanse again in a different way, or just sort of practice it? It's
yeah, you is it hold on a second. I think that people get rocky when they've been bullied. Okay. It's like someone saying, today's the day. I'm not going to let him do it again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're like, no more. And you get all this gumption, and then you find yourself getting quiet, getting small, getting, I have no, I think with practice, got to get yourself, strong again. Right. Yeah. So that will happen, the wobbly, when there is a history of being bullied around.
Yeah. I love, like when you said, I'm calling my energy back to me.
Yeah.
That felt like it felt zingy in my body. Like,
that's the law of compensation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bring it all back. And everybody listening, don't let someone take something from you and believe like it's really gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That's you just like, what? And that's how bullies get the ammunition. right? So when you're awake and you're aware, you function on a different, no, I'll
Yeah.
take that. I'll take that back. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah.
That,
And I
that's
guess,
not yours,
right. What
right?
I guess what like what I love about your work and what I mean, I'm so grateful for that practice you just led me through. It just opens my mind to think and feel in a different way. Like I've always felt that when I read your other, emotional detox book series, and when I've like humming is I just I love especially that book with which one is it with the 130 practices?
Oh, that's emotional detox now.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
So
is great because it's like every day to day. Energy in action again is the laws and the
yeah,
that's like a different experience. They're all good. It's not that one's better or it's whatever you're
true.
drawn
It's
to.
just
Yeah.
right. And that one I was drawn to sort of soon after my
Yeah.
divorce and moved,
Yeah.
and it's like earmarked and um just all
Yeah.
lovely. And this next one I'm gonna have sent to my son in California, and he'll bring it over when he comes for Christmas, because it was just one
Oh
of those
boy.
things where I like Amazon was like, we'll deliver it next Tuesday, and I was gone next Tuesday. But anyhow, it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is that I just feel like I love bringing your body of work to listeners, because it just opens us up to thinking of ways and healing in different ways. Like you started by saying this is deeply rooted in, in Hindu and art, like all sorts of old traditions. It's not something, you're just making up, but you're facilitating it and putting it in this lens that's accessible to me. And I really appreciate that. Just
Yeah, well, you represent so many people, really. I
I
mean, I
do.
appreciate you being open and willing to represent people that aren't on the call, because so many people go through these things. It is extremely traumatic.
Mhm.
Um, I'm glad that you're okay with, your health. We're glad that you're alive, and we
For sure.
celebrate that, and we
Yeah, for
celebrate
sure.
that, right?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
do, I guess for listeners, part of the challenge with my story is it is pretty extreme. And I just want listeners to find that place in them, because we've all had experiences where we may feel like we were bullied or feel like our emotions were not allowed. I think that's most of us. Um, and then leaning into your work of cleansing and the spiritual laws. I'm fascinated with it. I love it. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. You're
Thank you very
welcome.
much. So what if, yeah, I guess, so for listeners to start, I guess they just get a book that feels right to them. I will have them all listed.
Yeah. I mean, I cleanse every Tuesday night. If anyone wants to join Zoom, I do exactly what I did with you with a group every Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah, I do Tuesday nights at 7 Eastern.
Okay.
What time is that? I don't know for you. Noontime on Wednesdays Eastern. So I get online on Zoom. It's a membership, and I just do,
Awesome.
whatever. Like today we did empowerment, and it was cleanses for empowerment. But it's never what you think it's going to be. That's the
Yeah.
fun part. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We're going start. It's just completely spirit led. So, it gives you a chance to practice. Plus, you're held within a container of a group, and it helps you grow. In your business, your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just,
So,
right. So I love that. I will definitely put that
yeah.
link in the show notes, and just,
Yeah.
um, I am deeply grateful, and it absolutely helps you grow. Like I feel a sense of calm and peace and
You're all about call it back.
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I would keep calling it back. Just,
Yeah.
just like you call your dog home, hey, so-and-so, come home. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of want you doing that, Susan, for a little while every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Call it back, because every time you do, all of that's going to leave you,
Yeah.
any of that history there is like,
Yeah, that feels very true, and also like soft, and it's almost like there's like a little Susie in there that's like, yeah, honey,
yeah,
call it back. Yeah.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
awesome. I'm
I'm
like,
happy for you.
so much for coming on and sharing. And is there anything you think we should leave the listeners with before, like one
Oh
last
boy.
day, or yeah.
I think they have a lot to digest right now. I think that's when if you're sitting there going, I have a lot to take in, that's a shift, right? That is, if you're not ruminating on the old stuff, then you probably have processed some emotions.
Yeah.
Okay. So just be happy about that. Say, wow, I'm feeling, thinking, reflecting differently in this moment. That's what it feels like to process your emotions.
Mm.
You feel better. You don't feel worse.
Yeah.
Worse is reactions.
Yeah. Well, there's the
Yeah.
detox.
Yeah.
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 Oh my goodness. And that's what it's all about. That's all of your work. So thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this.
Thank
This is so
you. Thanks
exciting.
for having me.